Hello and a warm collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest this morning, Ms. Jenna Galloway. How you doing, Jenna?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I am fabulous. I'm excited to have you on. I'm excited to learn. I did my, my mandatory creeping. Check out your LinkedIn, look at your website, but nothing beats having the real person on here. So I want to dive right in, and I want to let the audience in. You're CEO at Fledge. I've made this joke often. What's a Fledge?
What's a Fledge?
Let's start there.
Yeah, no, great question. We chose the name Fledge for this particular company because we wanted to imagine children as little fledglings. They need nurturing, they're maybe in their nest, but need lots of support and guidance before they're ready to leave the nest and fly as independent and unique humans. So yeah, that's where
I love it. I think you had a good branding brain, or you had a good branding people around you. Okay, like here's the story. Let me hear. Did you come up with the name first and then back your way into the story, or did you have a solid story and then found the name? Because as a marketer, sometimes it goes both ways.
No, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure. It was definitely, we had the concept first, and then we were racking our brains for what we could call it, and this one just seemed to fit really nicely.
Did it land right away, or did it get pushed aside and then brought back a couple of times? And I'm sharing this because there's so many founders that, and creating a name today is up there on one of the most difficult things, because they're often always taken. They're taken.
Yeah, well, and I feel like I have very weird names for my business ventures as well.
Okay.
Like my first business venture is Wimbin, and it's a little bit hard to pronounce. It means a pink-eared duck, and the whole concept is that pink ear is unique to the duck, and there's something unique about every child, and it's our role as educators to help them to express that. So with Fledge, we were trying to go with something a little more mainstream and easy to pronounce, but no, I think my partner at the time had just been throwing some names at me because my brain was just not going there, and just
Sometimes you just run out of cycles, right? It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Because there isn't many hats in your world that you have to wear from day to day. So just give me a
No.
little bit. I see founder and vice president, Beam Yoga Foundation. I see Wimbin, which thank you, because I would not have probably pronounced it. I would have hesitated. I would have hiccuped.
No worries.
And then you've got Fledge.
Yeah.
Would you call yourself a serial entrepreneur?
I guess so, but
I
not
know it's a
by,
weird thing to
not
label
by
yourself. I
choice.
recognize that question was a bit like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, probably by default, I guess, but really, and a lot of people have asked, like, oh, when did you decide to be an entrepreneur, or how did you, build up to where you are right now? And I never wanted to or planned to become an entrepreneur. It just happened. And I'm super grateful because I think as an entrepreneur, you get to wear many different hats and learn so many different things. And it's just been a privilege to work alongside incredible people to develop our companies and what we offer, but also to work with families and children and really see their development thrive when they're with us. So
your passion for the group that you're aiming to positively affect comes through in spades. And we'll talk about a Fledge in a minute.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting dialogue. So you're giving me some food for thought, and these that's what I love about these conversations. They emerge, and certain things you're saying about, well, I didn't plan to be an entrepreneur. It just kind of happened. Was it, I'm unemployable? Was it, I don't see the problems being solved the way I want them solved? Was it just a drive to, like, I think I can do it? I would be careful with the word better. I can do it different. Better is very subjective, but different is sometimes different is better than better. I've heard that said as well.
Totally.
Was it a mix of those factors? If you look at the baking the cake of Jenna, the entrepreneur, was it a bunch of those things that kind of stimulated you to, because I think entrepreneurship gets celebrated sometimes almost in a weird way. Like people, a cape gets put on the idea, and it's this, but it's hard and it's not easy. And it used to be entrepreneurship when I was younger was like a remedial program you did versus now it's so much more celebrated, which I think can be dangerous, but also inspiring. So I'm just curious of like how you kind of slice through all that.
Totally. I completely agree that it can be inspiring, but also dangerous, especially if you're not fully aware of what you're getting yourself into, which I think
Which is
majority of
almost
the
why
time
you
you're
get into it,
not.
because you don't know what's going on.
I mean, sometimes the naivety is a good thing, but no, actually, none of the above.
Okay.
I had some struggles when I was in pre-med in university, my own mental health struggles, and I actually had to drop out. And so it was through that process of going through that very challenging period of time and the impact that it had on my friends and my family and me as an individual and the path I had foreseen for myself, and seeing that basically vanish in front of me. Had to do some really deep thinking and discovery and um, really seek out help from trained professionals, mental health professionals, but then also look at it from more of, I guess, a spiritual or a holistic lens as well.
Mm.
So for me, I really connected with the practice of yoga. And I was able to connect through somatic processing and movement and really focusing on the breath and being guided by um, these yoga practitioners. And so I just saw real potential for how can we get kids moving, breathing, connected to their bodies, and able to process things in a space where we're not necessarily using words or asking them to recall experiences. It's more so about how do we just build community and have a fun space for them to move and connect with others.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate the honesty and sharing those journeys, which can, when you're in them, are very real, and after the fact, being able to take, okay, what did I learn, and how can I pass that on? I really like what you said about the combination of trained professionals. You were very
Mhm,
clear about that, but then you
mhm.
also articulated the spiritual side. As I see yoga on your LinkedIn profile, so
Yeah,
clearly, because I needed to have some real tough conversations with myself. Those can be,
yeah,
long shamanic walks in the desert. They can also be working with a practitioner. I
yeah.
love the idea of bringing all the tools to bear and looking at the whole person. And I heard that's what I heard in what you said.
Oh, absolutely. I think my biggest focus with all of these companies is really we place a real importance on research and the science behind things, in addition to that real, authentic human connection that you can't always quantify or measure. And
Mm.
so I think it's really important, especially if you're in a human based or service based business, to understand both sides and understand that both need to be successful in order for you to be executing something in, I think, a positive way.
And the pressures and the fragmentation, the challenges we're seeing in our world would imply that there's a disconnect somewhere, maybe multiple disconnects.
Yeah.
When you look at the world of, we'll just go traditional versus spiritual, and that's not the right binary, but I'm just using it to
Yeah.
simplify.
I get what you
Are
mean.
you also seeing that come more together? That there's a little bit, maybe more of an acceptance where now you might talk to your medical doctor, and then meet with a naturopath after, and then meet with a spiritual guide at the same time. Like, I'm seeing more facilities where there seems to be a lot more respect for the different disciplines and the different approaches that they do serve. They do serve a different outcome, but for
Mhm.
the same person.
Absolutely. And I think, again, it just comes back to we're humans. And so there is this untangible element of human interaction that you just can't capture with numbers. And so I actually, yeah, I've seen a huge shift from when I started this journey, over a decade ago to now, even within our school systems, a greater awareness around practices like mindfulness or, the importance of movement and people really paying attention to mental well-being, not just being the ability to focus or self-regulation. It goes deeper, and it's a person's ability to really take on challenging situations. And we know that we're going to have ups and downs in life. We know we're going to have lots of different feelings and emotions and experiences, but it's how you're able to actually take those on, process them, and then learn and grow from them that really matters. So, yeah,
Uh,
definitely seeing that shift.
Things that I was not exposed to until much later in life, when I said,
Yeah.
this operating system isn't really getting me where I need to go. I need to go a little bit deeper. And then I'm going to start, then you get down the yoga road, and then maybe you start
Yeah.
discovering some Buddhist teachings and things that maybe weren't presented in some of my earlier experiences.
Totally.
But that was often, the people that I know that went on that road, it was more self-directed. They went and searched it out. It wasn't
Mhm,
as easily accessible or certainly talked about as mainstream as it is today, even
mhm.
though it's been around forever. Really,
Yeah,
that's the funny part. We treat
yeah,
it like, oh, it's more of the new science. I'm like, well, isn't it kind of the old science? This new again?
yeah.
But talk to me about Fledge. How did that emerge into what, and walk us through? 'Cause of course, I've read your website, I've read it, I've read the tagline, but give us a little more of the nuts and bolts of the role that Fledge is now playing on top of what is clearly your belief system.
Yeah, absolutely. Bit of a long story, but I'll try and keep it condensed. So had some struggles in university, obviously had to change paths and just went down this road of working directly with families and children to create programming that supported what they were asking for. And I think our real superpower in our businesses is that ability to connect and provide spaces or experiences or facilitate that connection for whether it's classroom teachers with their students or parents with their children. I actually think we're pretty good at it. So that's what we've chosen to focus on. And then we also have the educational components as well. But went on to build my first business, Wimbin, which we're actually celebrating our ninth birthday this month. Um,
Congratulations. That's a
Thank
very
you.
real milestone. Mhm.
Yeah, it feels really nice. But when the pandemic hit, we had to take a pause for our in-person services. So through Wimbin, we have a little school, preschool, and pre-kindergarten programming, in addition to school programs, camps. We've trained over
Oh, very cool. But
800
obviously all
educators.
very face to face, person to person stuff. Mm,
Exactly.
yeah.
And so we had to take a pause and start exploring how we could still have connection with these um, in a different form. And
The
so,
need didn't go away simply because we were stuck at home.
no, yeah,
I
it
would say it's the
actually
opposite,
increased.
actually. It
Yeah,
increased. Yes, it increased.
absolutely. So we started looking at digital platforms, playing around, and that was great. But we really realized that there were a lot of literacy and numeracy
Mm,
software platforms or gamified platforms for children and families, not a lot of like social emotional learning at the time, but
okay.
also mental well-being and looking at it from more of a holistic lens. So we had been
The
asked.
STEM bucket was getting checked already, right?
Totally, yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay.
And we were getting asked all the time from parents, educators, frontline providers, can you share some of the practices, the tools, the skills, so that we can also share that with the children that we're supporting? And so we thought, what better way to share that or scale it than through a digital platform where we can take this research-backed content and easily share it with many.
And what's your just curious, like let's do the nuts and bolts. Is this
Yep.
Canada based? Is this Alberta based? Does this have the ability? Because I know the education system can sometimes have walls between
Mhm.
provinces, certainly between countries. How
Yeah,
does that look from a geographic perspective in terms of your ability to reach? Because hey, kids are everywhere,
totally. Yeah.
and this sounds awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, the dream is to have it as a global learning platform and
Awesome.
unique to different cultures, and the ability to share across the world different well-being practices, different concepts and um, theories behind research, approaches to learning. Right now, we've been primarily focused on the Calgary community and really learning, what is our niche and our place within the education system. But now we're also exploring, if we're working with different organizations. So, for example, we've run a pilot project with two of the largest YMCAs in Canada.
Hmm.
We've also worked with Winsport, the city of Calgary, and we're just starting to explore how do we leverage different spaces where children are being supported by adults, um, and how can we support those adults in nurturing the foundational skills those children need to thrive.
I'm curious in those environments, and not to be specific or call out, but obviously you said
Mhm.
Winsport and you said White House, recognizable names.
Yeah,
When you're working with those organizations,
yeah.
kids and kids and kids are kids and parents and parents and all those things are sometimes universal, but I'm oversimplifying.
Mm,
Do you run into like, well, as a values based or a belief system, well, Winsport believes this and YWC, and I'm not trying to call, I'm just using them as examples. I
of
don't know,
course,
and
yeah.
nor I only call people out in positive ways on the show. We never get into that side of it. But do you run into like, well, we kind of believe that this is the way it should be done or that, or is there a universal acceptance that this type of approach, do you have to customize it for each views of the values? Because the bigger question is when you look at values based in different cultures around the world, does that
Mhm.
even happen locally from organization to organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Mm,
think that's the beauty of Fledge because what we
mm,
did is we weren't like, hey, here's this approach and you have to do it our way and this is our framework. We have the research to say this is effective and we've tested it. Everything we put on our platform is able
nice.
to build competency in children, but it's up to you, the person who has that authentic connection with the child, to deliver that and help facilitate that learning and that journey. So
Oh,
we
nice.
yeah, I guess we're taking a little bit of a different approach to how we're using the technology. It's not just, hey, put kids in front of a screen, have them watch these videos, and they'll be mentally and emotionally literate. It's more so, how do we
As funny as
better,
that sounds to say out loud.
right? It's weird,
I'm going to say no.
right? You just, it's really hard to assess that. And I think the human connection is what really matters. And so, how do we use technology to better facilitate those interactions and make grown-ups feel like they have the tools and the skills to share with kids so that everyone can have a positive
Well, and
and
the ability to feel that you're part of it, that you have your fingerprints on it. You're not just parking a child in front of a screen, which I think
totally.
I'm not a parent, but I'm pretty sure that's not a great strategy at the best of times. I don't think any of us should be parked in front of screens for too long, actually, without having detrimental effects.
Totally.
It's not just children, everyone. It's us as well. But so thinking about that, when you go into other cultures and other parts of the world, that really allows, because it's so easy when you're building a technology platform. We have to
Mhm,
make it consistent so we can standardize it, so we can scale it. But I heard you
mhm,
say is no, we standardize the parts that would need to be, and the personalization and the ability for the human in the loop, not really
mhm.
what that means, but the educator or the influencer in that environment can then take that and still put their flavor on it. That's a really interesting from a scale perspective. If I was just to look at the pure business case of how do you get your technology out there to a broader audience.
Yeah, and I think what's really important too is that there's not going to be one approach to mental health that's going to solve all of the world's problems. There are so many intelligent people out there with incredible research, different approaches, philosophies, programs. And so we are starting to think about, how do we bring all of that into one space so that we create a community, a platform where parents and educators can really come and think, you know what, this program has been tested, it's research backed, I can trust it. And so I feel confident in sharing this with my arguably most important people in our lives, which are our children.
Mhm. I love you said trust. As you're talking, I'm thinking the base of that pyramid being, we all have access to information, but the challenge is, where did it come from? What's the motivation behind it?
Mhm,
Would you say that eventually you would see a platform where there might be two modalities or two approaches? I'm not saying they conflict, but they're very different,
mhm,
but yet they both have results and they're both have been proven out to work in certain settings. And then the individual applicator, or the person who's going to then put that forward to the children, can still pick and choose from things that might seem different, or am I
mhm.
getting too binary in terms of how it all
No.
comes together?
No, that's exactly what we've done. So
Okay.
what we did
Okay.
is we designed the program so that if you feel like you want to customize your journey, or let's say you're an educator and you know that your class needs a specific focus, you can actually use the platform in a way that it's self-directed. But for people who might be like, I have no idea where to start, or I feel more comfortable following a set out plan, we do have recommended learning pathways.
Okay.
So you would just literally follow the journey.
From a customer success, and maybe that's not the word, you probably refer to your groups as different than customers, but in the black and white of it, when you think
Mhm,
about customer success, I can start and follow a plan, and I can graduate to more customized. Like, I feel like you're also giving me some wayfinding as a parent, where I might be feeling a little lost, or as an educator where I'm like, oh my God, like I'm so overwhelmed. The world is changing. I don't even know what to do to keep up. And I'm sure
yeah.
that's a common feeling out there for educators.
Absolutely, and I think as someone
Mm,
in the space who is looking at this and practicing it every day, there's so much out there, and something I really hear commonly, I was just in Edmonton for a roundtable with the Mental Health Commission of Canada and, the Canadian Mental Health Association, and what keeps coming up is there's no one place where all of this information is consolidated and shared so that we can all move
source of truth.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's what Fledge's role is, within that early childhood education piece, is how do we bring this all together and provide pieces that really work for individuals? So it might look like a patchwork approach for many different people, but at
Mm.
least it's customized for them. Um,
Well,
and
we live in
maybe
the age of personalization. Like the world we engage in, you and I both pick up our phone and look at a similar feed.
yeah.
It's, and that can be good or bad. Let's not talk about that. But
Yeah.
it is still customized, and with the level of personalization that we expect because of these powerful devices in our pocket. I want to
Mhm.
know when my food's showing up. I want to know exactly where my car is. I don't want to know before I check into my, like, it is a customized, it is a patchwork approach.
Yeah.
But if it gets it right, you feel heard, and you feel like you're getting what we're almost demanding it silently and not even realizing we're being taught to be very selfish in our
Yeah.
demands.
Well, and I think that can like, yes, there's positives to it
I know
in
I'm
the
I'm,
fact.
I'm going to steer back to the positive because we can go down a dark road if we wanted on
No,
that
no, no,
topic.
totally. But I think it's important to acknowledge because the positives are, you know, lots of different children, or sorry, lots of children learn in different ways. And in the past, the traditional learning model may not have served everyone equally.
I
Whereas
may have
now,
struggled in the regular learning model when I was younger by the amount of times I spend at the office, but that's another story.
yeah, and but
Training for
that's
an entrepreneur, pushing back from day one.
totally. And but that's not fair to you as a kid. Like every kid deserves to have a supported
Mhm.
learning experience and the ability to do their best. And so I think that's a real positive of it, but it can also cause a little bit of closed-mindedness or maybe too much comfort where kids aren't being pushed out of their comfort zones to be bored or have that curiosity to problem solve. And so I think that's something we're really talking about as a team at Fledge is how do we kind of maintain this tricky balance of pushing so that children are able to develop and challenge themselves, but then also customize and personalize so that we can serve many. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely not about removing challenge because that is
yeah,
what
no,
sharpens us all. I was
totally.
recently at an AI. I was at the World Summit AI conference in Montreal, and one of the panels, it was a fantastic 2 day panel. But
Mhm,
one of the panels was about education, and they
mhm,
were almost all educators on the panel. And one thing that came through loud and clear was a gentleman from I think University of Indiana. Is very senior and tenured. And he said, "Listen, AI this and students that." He goes, "As educators, he goes." Like we're a big part of this problem of not being open to new ways of doing things, and this is my lesson plan, and this is how I've done it for this many years. And he took quite a moment to, he's such a good speaker too. It was powerful the way, when someone just shows
interesting.
up on stage and everybody stops and listens. It was one of
Yeah,
those. And he
yeah.
really kind of threw some shade, and he's like, I'm an educator and we have to take responsibility for the
Mm,
change that we need to see and not be comfortable. And this is the way we've always done it. Have you
mhm,
seen some pushback, or has there been some bristling when you come in to go, hey, we're going to customize. Whoa, this is new. This is different. This is scary. Has
yeah.
that been part of the journey? I can only imagine it has.
100%. For some
Yeah.
reason, I really like to choose the hardest road and problem
You just
approaches.
lightened up when I asked that question. Most people will, she's like, "Oh, absolutely."
No, I like a good challenge. It is really about finding the people who understand and who are interested in taking an innovative approach, and those people are
Convert
our
the curious,
champions.
convert the curious. Yeah.
Ex Absolutely,
Yeah.
and then you see some success and it starts to catch on, and then you start to see people really understanding what you're doing and actively seeking it out, and it takes some time to get there, and I know well, from my limited experience in the tech sector and just learning about scaling a business, maybe that's not a company that some investors would be interested in because it might take too long, it might be too tricky or risky.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about the social impact space. And a lot of individuals who have been successful and are now looking to change the way that we do certain things that have been the way they are for a very long time. And so that's why I'm such an advocate as well for social impact investing because there are just so many things in our world that can be improved that will make life better. And yeah, I believe business can be a very powerful catalyst for that change.
Yes, I agree. Sometimes it gets treated in a binary way of like, oh, if it's business, it's not going to necessarily. And businesses sometimes have a reputation for not being benevolent, but I think they can be. And when they are, nothing creates impact like success, right?
Totally. And why shouldn't they be? Like, we all
Mhm.
want to live better lives and have a good
Those
time
are
while we're
universal
here.
truths.
So,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah,
How has been the journey of the fund? Let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the business a little bit
sure.
in terms of, and am I safe to say that you were consider yourself a non-technical founder?
100%. Yes.
I didn't want to make assumptions. That's be unfair
No.
of me. So obviously, and you're playing in the technical, like sooner or later, there's tech has to show up to be able to facilitate the growth, the span, the reach, and the process. You know,
Yeah.
you need the right content, but we all know it's certainly sooner or later, everything is a tech platform in some way or another these days. So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that journey. And also, I'm also curious around funding.
Yeah.
Was it self-funded initially? Were you able to find some of those? Because you don't want a check, you want support. You don't want
Mhm.
money, you want as someone who's not only an investor but invested. And
Yeah.
with social impact investing, I'm assuming that becomes even more, well, that is the make or break, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I'll start with the funding piece
Okay.
and then move on to the technical piece. We did raise a small pre-seed round, and we
Okay.
have three wonderful investors who have been incredibly supportive in helping us just figure out where we fit. And obviously, as a non-technical founder, there have been challenges in me learning about how to navigate product management and speaking with our devs team and working alongside them. And luckily, we've been so fortunate. Our CTO and all of the people that we've worked with on the development are so patient and really take the time to explain the things that matter. So I really feel like I'm a part of building the product, and I feel very heard in that experience.
That's great.
But I have had to do a lot of learning, so a lot of
I bet.
reading and yeah. If you're interested in building something, I think naturally just taking on that curiosity and seeking out books or podcasts or whatever, as much as you can get your hands on, um, to master that small piece that you can without getting overwhelmed in the nuts and bolts of it all. It's really important, but it's possible.
I love well, I'm a huge proponent. Anyone who knows me knows I just literally wrote a book about curiosity because I love it so much. And I
Nice.
heard something recently. It was the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she's come out and said, "Listen, stop trying to always follow your passion and just be curious, and you might find it." And I
Yeah.
love how she kind of repositioned curiosity, and that whole book was her like going to try to find her passion somewhere. And she goes, and I love how you said it. Like, if you're curious, there's so much information out there to be found. And if
Mhm.
you're motivated for, there's that self curiosity of like, "Oh, I really want to learn it." And there's like, wow, if I learn it, how can I share it? And then there's like, well, what if I actually think bigger? And what if I unpack what's possible? And what if this was the opposite of what it is now? What could that be like?
Mhm.
There's so much energy can be derived out of that. I think I don't know. I also read another article recently. I read a lot of articles where it's like,
Good.
what if mindfulness, which really caught on in our society a few years ago,
Mhm.
was replaced by curiosity. And they said mindfulness for a lot of people is this, "Oh, I try to be mindful, but I fail on it." Where
Mhm.
curiosity, there's no real pass or fail. There's just levels. And it was a fun article. They said, what if when our society adopted mindfulness as this objective, what if we would have adopted curiosity instead? Where might we be? It was just one of those kind of weird little quirky articles.
No,
And I've heard you say curiosity a few times in what you talk today. And of course, it's on my mind. So I hear it whenever you say it. But
yeah,
as a founder, I think that's so key to be curious and be okay to not be an expert in all those areas. But with curiosity, wow, there's no lack of places to find information if you're curious.
absolutely. And I'm not going to say it's always easy. Like, I definitely have some perfectionistic traits that
I love your self-awareness, Jenna.
yes, and well, that's why mindfulness and curiosity can be complementary, I would say,
I
because
completely agree with you.
yeah,
Yes.
having the awareness and
And then the
being able
critical
to
thinking to know when you're like, okay, this is maybe not worth pursuing. Maybe I need to back down the curiosity in this area. Like, I still think critical
totally,
thinking does play into both those.
yeah, and just like I think my biggest thing is one of my friends recently was validating one of my experiences and just said, "You're human. Of course you're feeling that way. Like you can't get everything perfectly the first time. You're going to make
A little
mistakes."
permission now and again is nice, isn't it?
Right. And it just
Some
clicked
of us don't
something
give
in my
ourselves
brain.
permission sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of us.
So,
I don't know anyone like that.
right.
So that journey, so getting into it, and
Yeah.
was there ever like, I can't or I shouldn't or I'm not qualified, or was there any imposter syndrome? Were there any of those stories came up for you kind of in the early days of, I don't know, we're always in the early days of something new.
Mhm. I think the early days, were when I had the most naivety, I guess, and
I
I
love
was
it.
like,
Yeah.
"I'm doing this. Like, I need to do this. I've had the
Nice.
conversations. Let's go." And then things get a little bit more realistic once you're in there and you're finding customers and trying
Mhm.
to sell, and I think when we commercialized the product was when a lot of imposter syndrome came up for me
Okay.
because I wanted it to be perfect and this end product that was very high quality. And obviously, we're selling to the education system and organizations that have to maintain a certain standard. So we can't just sell them a half-baked product.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the MVP one has got to be pretty good because you don't
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'll be blunt, a lot of those in those early times, especially if you're disrupting or doing something different, that and other individual immediately is going to look to put holes in it. Like, and it's not
yeah,
even a fault of theirs. Like that's the discernment. That's the like, what is this? Some other platform that's going to solve all my problems. Like
yeah,
we all get a little jaded sometimes too, right? And that's also
totally.
quote unquote being human.
Yeah, well, and especially in providing a service to kids as well.
Yeah.
Um,
The
like
walls
at
should be
first,
high. The barrier should be high.
yeah, and at first I was like, "Oh, this is so frustrating. No one's listening to us. No one will have a conversation or even try." And then I had to really sit with it and be like,
Mm,
"That's probably a good thing." And maybe there are different efficiencies that we can find with procurement processes and, sourcing different learning technologies. But at the end of the day, it should be hard to put
mm.
these new businesses and new approaches forward. There should be
I
less.
really appreciate like a little bit of empathy in where they're coming from. And if it
Yeah,
was easy, oh, that would be actually would be scary in
yeah,
terms of like a group that needs to have our stewardship, our protection,
yeah,
needs to have our best versions of us showing up to help
yeah,
them be the best versions of whoever the versions down the road.
yeah.
Um, did you also get that break where there's that champion, that group that went, you know what? Yeah, we are going to give you a chance. Like how was that first, maybe outside the friends and family and the relate like that, like
Mhm.
6 months ago I didn't know you, and 6 months later we're actually working together. Like that when it really really happens.
Yeah,
Was there a group that really stepped out, and was it champion that kind of catalyzed? Okay, we're actually moving forward.
100%. The first school we really signed under, like a formal agreement. So we had had a couple of paid pilot schools and,
Okay, but
um
you at least had paid pilots, so that helps.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, but the first school that came on as a fully paid client and we're like, "Yep, we're willing to provide feedback and collaborate, and, like, you can come into the school and observe it in action," like, obviously making sure that all of the safeguards are in place,
Hmm.
with
But they
police
were willing and
clearances and
open to try
everything.
something. Mhm.
Yes, and I can't thank that school enough, like, I will forever be indebted to them because
That's awesome.
that was the door opening for us.
And I'm only assuming, like so many industries, who else have you worked with? There's a long line to be second, I've heard often in the startup community.
Mhm. What do you mean by that?
That well, I'm really excited in your platform, but I don't want to be first. That's too risky. We're not that kind of
Oh,
company. But
yeah.
we'll be second. So who have you got that you're working with? Well, we haven't got our first customer yet. Well, call me when you do because I'll be second. And
Oh,
I've
yeah.
heard that a lot of times. I can only imagine in your space that who else have you worked with is like almost the first question.
Yes. No, absolutely.
And again, for good reason.
For a
A-
good
And no
reason.
one wants to be like, oh, we brought in a new technology and it was terrible and it did damage. No
Yeah.
one wants to be on the leadership of the school board. Like, no one wants to be in that role, right?
No, absolutely not. And I think that's also why I started so early with our longitudinal research study. So we just wrapped up our study with the University of Calgary.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and we were able to present our findings, I think a week or two ago at the Mental Health in Schools Summit, which just felt like such an incredible milestone for us because as a startup, you do have limited resources, but to us, it was really important to invest in the research to ensure that our platform was effective and was making a positive impact. And if it wasn't, that's okay, but we would need to change things. And so, yeah, I'm really proud that we took that approach, even though it might not have been the easiest, or I don't know.
Jenna, you don't strike me as someone who takes the easy road just because it's easy. I don't know you
No.
that well, but that's the impression I am getting in the very short time we've got to know each other.
Yeah, I think that's something I maybe need to work on.
It's always a work in progress.
Yeah.
When you talk about making that decision of like, do we invest in the technology or do we do research?
Mhm.
Were your investors involved in that? Was that a conversation where you had, or was like, no, we're going to give you money and we trust you to steward it? Or was that something where there was hey, I've got to kind of defend my thesis here a little bit of like,
Yeah.
I've got four mouths to feed, but I'm going to pick the research one because that's exactly where I think it's going to be the most aligned for who we are as a business.
Yeah, and that's where the respect for my investors comes in tenfold because one of the investors' a stipulation was that we gained ethics approval in order to move
Hmm.
forward with the investment for our research study. And so just being associated with a fund that is forward thinking and wants to have the evidence and the backing beyond just the financial
Of
metrics.
course, it brings up things like ethics and has it maybe an ethicist on their team. Like that's all of a
Yeah,
sudden you're like, oh, you're now telling me through action what you actually find what's important to you.
100%. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I major respect for my investors. And I think they also had the foresight to see you're going to need that research, and it's really going to help you to
Yeah.
validate your product and get out there and
Well, you're in a space where that would, and I'm being bold in saying this, but it is almost table stakes. If you're going to say this
yeah,
is credible, well, if you don't have any research, then that's just you. Literally, that's just you saying it's credible. And,
yeah,
and and we live in a world where people say do your research, but when you really do research, that's a different story than just saying that you
totally.
read it on the internet.
Well, and there's also a different, yeah, exactly. There's a difference between something being evidence-based and research-backed. So a lot of
Mm,
programs out there, they do draw from other people's research, and technically that is evidence-based. But have
mm,
you conducted your own, thorough analysis of if what you're offering and your approach is effective?
mm.
Um, that's a different story.
Where were you on the journey that if it came back that it wasn't working? Like, were you
Oh,
like, there has to be, because if it's true scientific process,
yeah.
if we can break it, then it's not true. It's not working. As a founder, was there a few moments? Was there a few late nights or nail biting moments when you're like, wow, I believe in this, but I've got to be open to what comes back.
100%. And I think the best moment ever was when we received our preliminary findings because,
Mm.
as a for-profit company, we were not involved in the research process whatsoever, so we were so
Credibility zero
removed.
on your research if you are.
Yeah, and the only thing we knew was, if something was broken, we'd get a message from our research team saying, "Can you fix this piece of the tech or whatnot?" So I was going in blind to reading these preliminary findings,
Oh,
and they
I can.
came.
I feel that. I feel the
Yeah.
anxiety. I'm with
Was
you.
like, "Please, all of this effort," and I had a feeling that it was gonna be good, but it actually came back better than even I had anticipated, and I
That's
was
amazing.
so proud and excited about that, so,
And that just
um,
happened. Like this is going to be out in a few weeks, but we're
yeah,
recording middle of April here, or the end of April, and this, like, I love how fresh this is. This isn't something that
yep,
happened 3 years ago in your legacy story. This is,
no,
you're living this in real time. Mm.
yep, 100%, and hopefully, well, maybe by the time this comes out, we might have released our publication, but that is in the works, and if anyone's curious, they can get a hold of us, and we'll share that research with them.
Please do. My audience, I would say, I'm going to give them a lot of credit. They are curious. That is always
Cool.
just simply by the sheer variety of people I have on to try to really expose what is also happening in our province. That it's
Mhm.
so easy to just, if you don't bump into it, you don't think it's happening, but that's
Yeah.
not what's going on in Alberta. And that's kind of why this podcast was started. So having conversations like this, I love, because unless it's on your radar or you're in that area or that's your area of discipline, you often don't know about it. And it's
Mhm.
easy to kind of get like, oh, we just do this here. And that's what I love about our tech ecosystem is there's so much variety and so many
Yeah.
people like you forging a path forward, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. I think there's a speech in
Oh,
there somewhere.
yeah,
So
and I
what's next now that you've got this going forward? I'm excited for the next phase. I feel like I'm with you on this one now.
oh, thanks. I
I
really
love it.
appreciate that. What's next for us? We are now looking to expand throughout Alberta, but we're also
Amazing.
looking to 2 other provinces. So we'll be running some paid pilot programs, and then also just moving forward with some additional research into how we further customize and personalize that learning journey. So we're really excited to collaborate with some local universities, some
Nice.
brilliant researchers. And then we also love working with students because they bring that real fresh perspective. They're also the next wave of our teachers and our practitioners. So
The world we live in.
yeah, yeah, we have to understand, you know, how things are evolving, and we're not here to push an agenda or do things one set way. We're very curious
I love it.
and yeah, just want to understand how we can help.
The ability to to sell or to sell through a paid pilot versus a freemium model. Was
Mm,
that ever on the table, or was it always, no, we need to do a paid pilot because we need people to be financially and mentally and physically invested in this program? Was there a
mhm.
decision early on in the journey of like, we could give it away? No, I don't think that's actually going to get, so we're going to go paid. We might get less of them, but they'll be better. Is there a whole rationale around that?
Yeah, there is. I think depending on the organization, we just had an honest conversation of, are you able to participate in a paid pilot? Here's the value that we can provide. And we've also, to our team's credit, we don't just provide a tech service. We also have professional development. We have in-person residencies.
Some
Like there are
real client
different,
success, client success.
yeah,
Yeah.
different pieces that can complement that tech piece, so that it makes sense for these organizations. Um, there were some organizations that we ran free pilots with, but instead of a financial exchange, we said, well, hey, can we interview you? Can you do a 20-minute
Can
survey?
we learn? Yeah, can we learn?
Yeah, how can we learn from this experience? So we never just give something away for free because we really believe in our value as well. Um,
There's so much psychology around free and the risk. Yeah, yes, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
But thinking, there's so many startups that I've encountered that they're just trying to get that first customer. They're just trying to get adoption. They're just trying to get data, and getting it
Mm,
out and, kind of banging into your customers a little bit is also really, really important.
yeah.
But, I think the buy-in that you get from a paid pilot approach, however that is structured, I do think creates more buy-in on both sides in my
Hmm.
experience, but that's my own
Yeah,
bias. Moving from
absolutely.
province to province, any barriers there?
Yep. So each
Yep,
province,
just another barrier. She's like,
yeah,
yes, talking.
just
My life,
another one.
Tyler, is overcoming barriers.
Yeah, no, let's go. Let's take it on. Yeah, so each province has differing curriculum, and on our platform, we actually, for each activity, we specify how it addresses different parts of the curriculum. And so we're coming up with a backend technology that will help us to more easily sort our activities so that it falls into these different curriculum models, and just makes it simpler for teachers to pull a report and say, okay, we've practiced in these areas, so we've covered certain concepts. Maybe we need to focus on different areas here. But also beyond just being a mental well-being platform, we do integrate things like literacy and numeracy in the types of activities and how the information is presented. So teachers aren't just teaching foundational mental health skills, they're also allowing their students to practice these other very important skills as well.
Is the teacher also a beneficiary of the learning of getting exposed? I'm assuming they are.
Yeah.
So I know you were very clear. It's all about the child and how we want to help them. But I'm
Mhm.
seeing this secondary, also very deliberate, that
Yeah.
teachers are now getting exposed to new things and new ideas, and maybe getting reinvigorated with their roles.
Yeah, I think so. And teachers are a really big part of our Fledge community. We actually call the adults who are using Fledge Fledgeducators. Um, and we host quarterly well-being events in person for these Fledgeducators because we know that
It's
there's a
great. It's funny to say. It makes me giggle.
right? Isn't that we're very proud of it. And
It's
we
very
call
good.
out, oh, I forgot to mention before, but our client success, we actually call it nurturing because we want to nurture.
I love it.
Um,
I love it.
yes. But with educators and people who are working with children, it's hard work and there's a lot of burnout, especially after COVID and all of the changes that everyone went through. So we want to provide well-being experiences for educators and facilitators as well to come actually practice and have that experience. I think what we found in delivering some of these programs is that a lot of professional development is someone providing a presentation on mindfulness or telling us what something is, but it's the practice that
Yeah.
actually makes the change. And so that's what we're trying to do with Fledge is how do we make this experiential for not only the children and the users, but the people who are delivering this teaching as well? How do we take care of them? So
Well, and to not put my business hat on, but what a great way to make it sticky as well. What a great way to get it that this is a non-negotiable, that this is just the tools we use. And you're always going to, because it sounds like it's always your mandate to bring in new research and new material and new thinking.
Mhm.
That what more do you want in the of having something curated for you by a trusted partner that is actually helping you and helping you deliver on your role? Like it's
Yeah,
kind of a great combination from a tech platform perspective, just to put
thanks.
on our business case hat here for a minute.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, and I just think there's no way we can make this platform successful without community because it's based on human interaction. So if we don't have feedback, if we don't have, real buy-in, and
Mm,
if we're not supporting the people delivering this programming, then it's not going to be successful.
fair. How's the competitive landscape? And when I say competition, I don't just mean
Yeah.
other platforms, but I guess competition is this isn't the way we've done it, or this is the way, what does the competition look like? And is it point to point other competitors doing what you're doing, or is
Mm.
it often just doing it a different way being the competition?
That's a really good question. I think for us, yeah, it's always a balance between competition and collaboration
Mm,
because there are always going to be things that we're not going to be able to deliver on. So there are some organizations that they do offer similar services to us, maybe in a different format or delivery mechanism,
mhm,
but we are actually finding ways to work with them so that we can access their communities or help them to be more tech enabled or digitally accessible.
mhm,
um, in terms of our competitors, it's really interesting. There's a lot of focus on social emotional learning, and
mhm,
so I feel like attention has really
mm,
been directed in that realm. But where Fledge stands out is through that experiential learning and focus on mental well-being for each child. So it's not just social emotional learning, it's more so talking about
mm.
brain health, connections, really building capacity in that individual child as opposed to just how they interact with the world.
It feels very action oriented, feels very like to your journey about the mind, the body, the research driven combined with the physical engagement and movement of breath and yoga and bringing you together, and the power of breath alone can change your
Mhm.
life.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Versus learning about a concept and understanding how you interact with the world versus actually doing the thing. Does it
Yeah.
resonate with like in like a Montessori environment more so than a traditional environment? Like if you think of, I have a lot of friends with young children that, they're going to Montessori, and I've seen those results, and
Mm.
I've seen children in the traditional system that have done well. I've seen children in the private school, math focused, STEM, like until your head comes off kind of environment. And they've
Yeah.
done well also. Like there is
Totally.
so many different formulas as a
Yeah.
non-parent, but still I have lots of friends that are parents. I understand the concept, but watching that many of them have followed different formulas with different degrees of success and failure, but all moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's just that there's more than one way to do something. It's just about, you know, how are you assessing success? Like, if your child is
Yeah.
not succeeding in a certain environment, are you willing to reevaluate and maybe try something different? Or are you set on this one approach because of
Yeah. I like
your
that.
own viewpoints on something? With us, we actually follow the Reggio philosophy at Wimbin, our in-person school, and so that places a lot of emphasis on the child's interests, and it's also getting the kids
Mm,
involved in being a part of community. So our kids are helping clean up, they have different roles and responsibilities,
mm.
they are helping direct the learning, but then the educators are there to still guide the process. It's not just hands off, go nuts.
It's not, you mean it's not chaos?
No, it's like calm chaos. Yeah,
Interesting. So many
yeah,
different. I don't remember anyone really asking me what my interests were earlier in my school year, but yet as
yeah,
my education changed and I began to be able to be more self-directed, I consequently did better and learned more things. And it
yeah.
was interesting that change being presented at a younger age. What would that have done? Who knows? I don't know. Mhm.
Well, it becomes relevant and meaningful to you, so then you're able to apply it and see it in practice in the world, and I think that just makes so much sense.
Well, it's that's not exclusive to children. That's exclusive to I would say that's a human.
Yeah,
You put
yeah,
me in that environment now, I do better, no question.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
as you get a little bit more agency and autonomy, but having a little bit more of that agency and autonomy and understanding what it means in relevance to being 6 or 8 or whatever that happens to be, it still
Mhm.
makes sense, but obviously it needs to show up different because there still needs to be, to your point, enough structure that it can be
Yeah.
successful, but enough agency and autonomy that now you feel engaged as an individual human. That's
Mhm.
not the school system I went through. And it was fine. I'm not throwing shade on it, whatever. I got to where I am. But hearing
Yeah.
that sounds very optimistic to me.
Oh, well, I think that's good.
I
Yeah,
might have done
there's
better. I might have spent more less time at the office, Jenna.
yeah, totally. Well, we all might have done things differently, but we're all doing the best we can.
100%. I made the best
Yeah.
decisions that were available to us at the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If someone wants to get a hold, like, do you have parents reaching out? Like, you must have kind of coming at you from different directions as you put yourself out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. The website is a great way to get in touch with us. It's fledge.health or wimbin.com for our in-person offerings. And then my email is probably the best way to get a hold of me at this
Nice.
point in time, jenna@fledge.health. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and I do a little bit on Instagram as well.
Nice. Yes. The standard, there's so many ways to communicate these days. I appreciate you
So
putting your
many.
email out there. And yeah. LinkedIn is that one social program that I still think plays pretty much in the space of value and not just
Hmm.
cat videos, even though those can be valuable. I like a good cat video. I like a good laugh for now and again. I'll save my Instagram for
Yeah,
that. Jen,
exactly.
it was
Yeah,
really nice meeting you, and
you
I
too.
love what you're doing. I can't help but be like, huh, I wish I had that when I was younger. But hey,
Thanks.
if when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, but if not, then how about today? So you're
Yeah,
planting that tree today, and I think that that's fabulous. So really, we'll give Ryan Coots a shout out for connecting us. We
yeah,
do live in a 1 degree of separation city. Like, you're one phone call away from meeting somebody new that
yeah.
could have a cool that you could have a cool conversation with. I do love it. That's one of our superpowers here for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And definitely shout out to Platform Calgary for
Mm.
facilitating that community for early tech founders as well.
I was joking the other day, because we're doing our 500 episode. I remember when Terry Rock came on the show and says, Tyler, we're going to build a parking garage. And I was like, you're going to do what, Terry? And that was like episode 8 or 10 or something, like way back.
Yeah.
And now you just accept it as just being there. But there was
Yeah.
not that long ago that it wasn't there.
It's
When you think about where
awesome.
our city's come in the last 5 years, I'm
Yeah.
endlessly optimistic and enthusiastic. And yes, it's always easy to go, oh, we could do better. But we're also doing better than we were yesterday. So that's pretty cool. And that sounds like your program is built very much on that same philosophy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited to see what's next for Calgary and where we can take things. I think there's a lot of brilliant people in our city and very well-intentioned people as well. So,
Well said. Yes, I'm also all in on this environment, and I'll tell it to anyone who'll listen.
yeah, absolutely.
Jenna, thanks for coming on the show. Best of luck with your continued journey.
Thank
I'll
you.
see you. We'll chat again in a year. I love having people back on. Like, where are we now and what's happening? And I appreciate how early you are in this journey, but yet on a platform of you've been doing this for a while. So that's an interesting dichotomy, as I understand that. Yeah, maybe Fledge is young, but the idea and what we've been providing from a value and understanding who we're influencing, the teachers, the school system, and ultimately the children, that's not a new
Mhm.
journey for you. That's something that
Mhm.
sounds pretty close to your heart.
Yeah, very close. Thank you
Amazing.
so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have an awesome day.
Okay, you too.